Coming up on this episode of the Seahawkers podcast, we're talking Klint Kubiak, and we're talking about the 5 Seattle Seahawks that we are most excited about in this Kubiak offensive scheme. You are gonna want to stick around to the very end because that 5th Seahawk we're discussing, it's a bit of a wild card. It's a bit of a doozy. Coming up right now on the Seahawkers podcast. Go Hawks.
Hello and welcome to the Seahawkers podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Schultz, and I am joined by a quadfecta of handsome gentlemen today. We've got Mr. Clinton Bonner, we've got Mr. Phil Leidick, and then we have the maybe not so handsome Adam Emmert. Adam, I know you took exception to the handsome commentary, so I wanted to put you in your own category.
I just don't like liars, and this isn't handsome. Like, we can just all agree there. We may have disagreements about some of the other things we're going to talk about here, but yeah, this is not handsome. We all know.
Okay, well, that's fine.
Drop it in the comments, ladies and gentlemen. I happen to think Adam's a pretty handsome guy, but anyway, drop it in the comments.
Rank all 4 of us in the comments. We need to see.
If I'm any higher than a 4, I'm going to be pissed.
People are literally going to vote Adam just to make him upset and get a rant about how they win against his wishes.
Yeah, you just need to know. It's list season. It's starting early. If you were going to draft one of us, who would it be? Who would be on top? That's what we're doing now.
I think who would be on top, Brandon? I think Klint Kubiak would be on top of all of us. He's a better looking dude than any of us, except for maybe Phil. Yeah.
And the thing that makes him, I think, a little bit more handsome is that he can get some more out of some of our offensive players, which is one of the things that we're going to talk about today, Clinton.
Yes, I am excited, and thank you all for indulging me. And to the flockers out there, we're getting revved up. Now we're hitting at the draft season. We got our OC, we've got our line coach, we got our running backs coach, guys, and I think it's all starting to come together. We had the Kubiak press conference as well, where some people were yelling that he was dry, like, oh, he's so dry. It's like, hey Phil, did you care that he was dry or that he was going to run the damn ball?
I mean, guess what? I was not looking for an offensive coordinator with an amazing personality. We weren't trying to draft our favorite radio host, game show host, salesman, right? I don't think so. We want a guy that understands how to talk clearly, can teach, has a mind to put plays together. One of the things Adam said last year in Discord, and at first I was just ready to argue with him, and then I thought about it, I was like, that's a great point. The problem with our OC last year maybe wasn't his play designs all the time. It was, and he used this term, marrying the plays together to set things up. And the more the season went along, I'm like, I think Adam nailed it early on in this idea that being an OC, we want a guy that can get some flow and things working together and some combinations. And I kind of would like a guy that's got experience with that in the NFL and a whole family of experience. I don't need Mr. Personality.
I can understand, though, where people come from in that you want a guy who is at least going to seem engaging with players. Like you want a guy who can motivate and you got to have a guy who can keep people awake in the meeting rooms. So, I could see why there's a little sliver of concern there.
His forward-facing persona to the media, that's not necessarily what he's going to be presenting to the players either. No. So, and I don't know that the players need somebody to do jumping jacks and have a fireworks display when they're, talking to them about the wide zone. Like, I think they just need to know what the hell they're supposed to do.
You knew when you were in high school who the cool teachers were that kept your attention and who the most dry teachers were who you just wanted to nap through their class.
The cool teachers weren't the ones who captivated my attention. The cool teachers are the ones who understood that their time was when I was in class, and they didn't own my time when I was outside of class with mountains of homework. That's what I know. And I think Kubiak is going to get this all installed in-house so all the players are on the same page. And that kind of goes to what Phil was talking about. Being able to marry things together, have a bunch of stuff that looks the same formationally, but then there's 1,000 different variations out of it. That's the type of stuff that gives defenses fits. And I think Kubiak's going to be able to teach that well. His dad taught it well. And that's something I'm fired up for, Clinton.
Yeah, for sure. So what we're going to do today, we're going to play a little game, and why not? Because it's the Seahawkers podcast, and we like to do unique things that we don't think other people are doing. So what we're going to do is we're gonna call out in a certain fashion the players we expect to have the biggest boom because of the new scheme that they're in. So it could be biggest boom, could be like the most biggest expectations, or just kind of most curious about the delta, the change that will be there because now that Klint Kubiak is the OC and this scheme is going to change really quite a bit. So, boys, are we ready to go to round one? How are we looking?
Let's do it.
Everybody's got that. All right.
Ready.
All right. So, on the count of, let's go with, I would say 12, but that's way too many. On the count of 3, let's hold up our first round pick for the player we believe will have the most impact, be the most impacted by Klint Kubiak. So, on 3, 2, 1, up the screen. All right. So we got, oh, look at this. No matches. Top left, DK Metcalf. I got UCONN, of course, representing Christian Haynes. Mr. Phil with some great, design there with K9, of course, Kenneth Walker, and Adam with Charles Cross. So, all right. We have no matches. That's kind of cool.
Adam had my second pick. So
there we go. All right.
my second pick is already gone.
It must be because you and I are kindred spirits, my man, because your first pick happens to also be my second pick. So,
look at that.
Yeah.
So we got,
And I had hey guys, I had my little girls decorate mine. Did you like that?
They're amazing.
It's better than mine. Yeah.
My little
they're much
girls,
more
I said, here's
talented.
what I want. I want a K9 and Charles Cross Seahawks style.
Those are nice.
And they put those together for us. It's a family show. Thought I'd throw in a little fam.
Those are beautiful.
So more
so,
of
all
said
right.
canine. I'm
I
sensing.
think, Brandon, I think you got it nailed. So with the second round in there too, K9, K9, K9. So I think that's where we got to start. So Mr. Phil was the person to put it up first. So Phil, tell us a little bit why are you so excited about K9 and what do you expect to be this big, difference that Kubiak is now the man leading the charge?
Okay, so this seemed like the easiest choice for me. I want to say Geno because I love talking about Geno, but in this case, when I was looking for an offensive coordinator, even before the season was over, starting to think, okay, I want a guy fired. Who do I want? It seemed like Kubiak was the obvious choice. I'm glad they did their due diligence to check around and see if something else was there, but I like family. I like family values. I like football families and the way they think. And there's just something about the Shanahan, Kubiak families that know how to unlock running backs. And even the beginning of the Saints year with Kubiak himself, you watch the way he's able. I mean, it's another great running back, but the running back with the Saints, similar to me, has a lot of the qualities that I think K9 does. And when I started hearing Kubiak talking, he's talking about ways he's going to get K9 the ball. Okay, I like that. I also like the types of running plays that I've seen this family use in the past that just gets yards and consistent yards, and then let K9 deal with the popping him thing every once in a while. I don't need plays set up where K9's going to run 70 yards. He could find that from time to time. I need plays set up where it's going to be blocked 2 or 3 yards, and then we get the home run every once in a while. And I was going to mention this too. I didn't write it down, but the Shanahan Kubiak family are phenomenal at getting 11 players involved on real screen passes to running backs and setting it up in a kind of way where you have an advantage that by the time the quarterback lets the ball go, Arian Foster, where is he? He's out there. He's got all his big guys in front. All he has to do is catch that ball and find that find that spot, and boom, there he goes. So to me, if K9 is healthy, we are going to see some really good play. I think he's going to coach and require that K9 does the play the way it's set up. And then when he gets a couple guys miss, now it's time to be Mr. Creative, K9. We don't need you creative for the first couple seconds of the play. Trust it. Do what's written. He's going to get that from him. And then we're going to see some explosion. That's my thoughts on K9. I think he's the easy number one choice.
Boys, I'm getting fired up for all the things that Mr. Phil laid out there. Brandon, you had K9 up on the screen before Adam did. So just in the rules of the rules, take it away. What else can you add to that? Or what would you like to challenge? Or, how come K9 is on your list too?
Yeah, I think it's for a lot of those similar reasons. It's because it's that outside zone run game that I think fits the skill set of K9 more than any other running back on this team. Maybe Kenny McIntosh would fit into that too. I just don't see Charbonnet benefiting as much from the outside zone scheme, just because we saw him have a lot more success when they were running more of those gap scheme offensive plays. And we're going to see that from Kubiak too. But I think that this offense, it's going to, and we heard Kubiak talk about K9 in his press conference too. So that combined with, him kind of seeing K9 as the top guy, the type of offense that he's going into. And then Phil nailed it too with the screen game part, because I don't think what we've necessarily seen K9 in a really good screening offense, because, well, for one, the Seahawks have never really run a good screen game. So if we finally have the kind of offensive coordinator and the kind of offensive line coordinator that can get to that attention to detail that's required, I think, to run those effectively, then we're going to see K9 have success there too.
Very nice. Adam, a lot has been said. Is there something on the table that you could add to why K9 is also one of your favorites to watch?
K9 seemed like the lowest hanging fruit, and I'll just go Captain Obvious here. K9's going to have a better season because they're going to let him have a better season by handing him the freaking ball. Like, it's really what it's about. It's about opportunity. And K9 had his opportunity slashed left and right by an offensive coordinator that had an allergic reaction to handing the football off. So I think just that right there is going to be a big deal. One thing that'll be interesting is to see Kamara is a better pass catcher, I would say, than K9, or at least traditionally has been. We'll see if K9 can step up.
K9 had a great touchdown catch last year. It was pretty slick, but yeah,
it was pretty nice. Yeah, that was a sick catch. But the idea that the bread and butter is going to be the outside zone, that's obviously where Kenneth Walker likes to get the majority of his production. And Phil mentioned something like, I'd love to see it blocked up 2-3 yards downfield. Well, that would be great, but I would settle for like 0 yards downfield instead of negative yards. Like, I would love to see what K9 can do when he's not dodging tacklers behind the line of scrimmage. I think that you're right, though, Phil. The big home run balls don't have to be designed. That's something that K9 has the talent to create off of all of the options that come out of running the outside zone.
Yeah, awesome. And you mentioned earlier, Mr. Phil did Arian Foster with Kubiak with the Texans, and of course, go back a little bit further with Terrell Davis and that offense. And it could be quite exciting.
Gary, Peyton Hillis, like all those no-name backs.
Clinton Portis, that had the resurrection, right? With the Broncos also. It'll just be interesting to see if can K9 display the type of patience that kind of comes along with allowing the zone to get there and do its thing, and then do the one thing that's required. Arian Foster was, I think people forget, like he was like the one cut master, and I think that's what the zone blocking scheme calls for, is a dude that could really set things up, be a little bit patient, and then get that one cut and go. Now, do I know that Kenneth Walker has the burst to do it? Yeah, man. Yeah, he absolutely does. Does he have the patience to allow it to be and then make the one cut, as opposed to I need to make 3 or 4 cuts to make this my own thing? I think that's going to be the big question mark. I think he could get there, but I still have some reservations about his style when I look at like Arian Foster per se versus how Kenneth Walker has made his made his way so far in the NFL.
I wanted to add, because Charbonnet's style might play along with some of those players that the Kubiak Shanahans have worked with, when you mentioned Hillis and Foster and some of the. But the big question, it has to be, and you guys are right, is will K9 do what he's supposed to do, one cut and go? Will he do the first couple seconds as it is written? And my motivation for him isn't some guy that's, Mr. Personality, exciting teacher mode, but rather, here's the motivation, K9. millions of dollars, millions of dollars. I know how to get running backs yards. I know how to get you a couple easy ones and then do your magic. We don't want your magic until you've tried and trusted my play, and you will earn millions of dollars. Contracts are on the table for you if you'll just listen to me. And he can say that as dry and deadpan. If you just say millions of dollars, K9, in a dry voice, that should motivate him, right, Brandon?
I don't think that K9 needs any motivation to beyond knowing how to run the football as he does. I can think of like 3 plays where people pointed to last year and gone, well, K9 didn't make the right decision in these 3 plays out of however many times he decided to run the ball. And you're going to find that with any running back if you really want to look and see where they're indecisive. So I'm not buying that. It started off, I think, more so that way early on in his career. I think we've seen him progress.
Yeah, that's all I was going to add, Brandon, because I think you're 1,000% right. I think that was his first year where, he's starting to chop his feet and trying to do too much. I think since then, overall, like as compared to every other running back in the NFL, yeah, he's been much more decisive. And I don't think that's going to be a problem.
I love it. And I was at my local YMCA like 2 days ago now, and NFL Network is like just on all the time, which is good. That's a preferred channel to be on because something will be on that I can watch while I'm, milling about. And I think the NFL Network is just at a point where they're just like replaying the weeks because, it's like the very beginning of the end of the season. So it's like week 1 red zone. So they had Seahawks Broncos on the screen for quite a bit. And I'm watching Kenneth Walker just go in that second half. If you guys remember, he had like 18 yards the first half. They come out in the second half and they just run the ball and they run the ball. They run the ball, and it's just K9 gets a really nice touchdown as well. So I'm sitting there watching a replay game in a season that I know ended without playoffs, and I'm getting fired up while I'm lifting weights because this is what the Seahawks do to me. So, all right, that takes us through K9. Good first round there. Charles Cross was also a double dip, but by the rules we're making up on the fly, Adam had it up first. Adam, Charles Cross, the dancing bear. What do you expect in the Kubiak offense, and does it give Cross the boost we're looking for?
Well, 2 words we're going to all be tired of talking about by the time the season starts is wide zone, but it is a big part of kind of the basic foundation of the entire Kubiak system and all of that. I think that sort of blocking scheme actually plays to Charles Cross's strengths, and he's got good feet. He's not the strongest dude in the world, but he can move very well. He's very fluid. So I think the idea of getting him in motion and being able to, make that seal block on the edge, I think is really going to help him out a lot in the run blocking. And then secondly, there's a lot of people that pointed at his season last year, and he gave up a couple sacks. There's a couple games where he didn't look quite as good as maybe some of the others, but he's easily above average left tackle. Like, I think we can all agree on that. And one of the things that's going to help him out the most, as well as the rest of the offensive line, is the fact that the defense is actually going to have to honor and guess as to whether or not they're running the football or throwing the football. When you're the premier edge rusher that's lined up over the left tackle, and Geno Smith is going to be in the gun, standing right there, right after the ball snapped, holding the ball for 3 seconds because we're going to run everybody downfield 50 freaking yards every single time and try to get massive chunk plays. It makes your life really easy, and it makes your life as a left tackle impossible. So I think just the basic philosophy of this system is going to make a big difference for somebody like Charles Cross, who has the talent to really, make it come to life.
All right. I love that. Mr. Phil, you also had Cross, I think, as your second, but as the rules go, you could take the baton from here. What would you want to add? Look at that beautifulness.
Well,
good job.
I thought Adam was going to leave my main point, and then he got it right at the end, basically. But the thought for me is, I think Cross will probably get the 5th-year option, right? Do you think we're going to do that? I think
Yes.
they'd be moronic
100%.
not to. I'd be kind of upset if they don't. But this is the time where he should start moving forward as a tackle, and it's a perfect time to get somebody in who actually runs play action. And to me, and play action from under center instead of the pistol play action, which is kind of like a whatever play action. A couple things last year, I was kind of wait and see on Charles Cross. I was hoping he was going to take a step forward last season because I've been he's a all this skill and potential, but I'm yet to see him locking it down. He got beat a few times, but I felt like he showed me enough against some good pass rushers a number of times that I think he's got what it takes. I was disappointed that last year we kept leaving him on islands against phenomenal pass rushers and putting Geno where, like you already said, Adam, so this point's gone, but he's throwing it. So you're going to play a phenomenal pass rusher by yourself, and everybody knows your quarterback's throwing it. There's not a lot, except for the very, very best dudes that are going to win that over and over again. And so I think he was at a disadvantage. I didn't hate him last year. I really didn't think Cross was bad. I think he was given some bad spots. You talked about the wide zone. I think he's going to be ideal for that. And just being able, his numbers are going to be better just by running a lot more under center. Even though Kubiak's not like the king of under center, he just has to be medium normal dude under center compared to what we were doing last year. And so that has me looking up, and I think he's going to earn himself some cash this year. I don't know who goes next, Clinton. You're keeping track of that.
Yeah, I'd say pass to Brandon. Brandon, what else did you add about the year from Cross, and what do you expect, man?
Yeah, I don't think I have anything necessarily to add. I wanted to jump on the thing that Phil said, though, about Charles Cross's contract and the fifth-year option. There's nothing stopping the Seahawks and John Schneider from going ahead and paying him this offseason. And part of that can be negotiating that fifth-year deal and saying, well, if we were to tag you under the fifth-year deal, this would be the structure of your contract. You could work all that in there now, get that deal done early rather than waiting until next year. It could end up being a little bit more beneficial for you cap-wise. And I think with a guy like Charles Cross, you've seen all that you need to see to know that that's a guy that you want to be your left tackle long-term.
A couple of things I'll add are just some numbers. We're all talking, we are discussing, he had a pretty good year. He had an okay year. I didn't hate him. It's one of the comments we heard there. PFF, and you could take it for what it is. His overall grade last year was an 82.5.
Wow.
It's pretty good. He was 10th out of 100.
Good.
Yeah, 10th out of 140 something. A little bit better in pass block and a little bit worse. But range bound essentially. In run block, he's like ranking like a 78 in run block and a low 81 in pass block. And overall grade again 82.5. That's pretty good, guys.
He's going to get paid with those numbers. He's going to get paid
for sure. He's going to get paid like a maybe not top left tackle, but he's going to get paid like a very good left tackle. And I think he is that. The last thing I'll say numbers wise, we kind of beat around it, is 12 personnel, 21 personnel, 13 personnel, and we talked about leaving him on an island. I just don't think it's going to happen if there's a dominant pass rusher and Kubiak's going to be like, okay, just deal with it, Cross. Just all game long, just you are one-on-one like it's a Shrine Bowl drill. I just don't think that's going to be the case. So I'm very bullish on Cross. He was definitely on my short list as well. And I think we canvassed him quite nicely. I like everything we said. Brandon, you had DK Metcalf up on the screen. So why don't you take it away and talk about your man, DK?
Yeah, well, when it came to the Klint Kubiak press conference, one piece of information that stood out to me was Mike Macdonald saying that every offensive coordinator that they interviewed talked about that they had a plan for DK Metcalf, and it was Klint Kubiak who ultimately got hired, who had the best plan of the guys that they talked to, which tells me that that's why I had him as my number one. I think that if he has a plan, one of the things that we saw late in the season was they were completely fine with DK being decoy Metcalf, right? They would run him out there. He would take the double teams. They would feed JSN. JSN had a great second half of the season, and they just did not find ways to feature DK or get him the football, and they seemed fine with that. I want to see ways to find him and feature him within the offense, so that way that he's getting open, he's getting he can take those double teams at certain times throughout the game, but also find ways to get him the football, get him on the move, because he's one of your fastest guys. He can outrun anybody else on the defense, and I would like to see him getting the ball a lot more than I saw him get the ball in the second half of the season. Whether maybe injuries played a role in that too, but healthy DK Metcalf coming back, I think we'll see him featured in the Klint Kubiak offense.
I'm going to toss it to Adam. Adam, what do you want to add, dude?
Yeah, they did mention the idea of a plan for DK, and he had the best one and all that. And it was kind of like, well, okay, I don't really care the plan for the receiver. Like, what's your plan for the quarterback? Like that, who had the best plan for the quarterback? Because that's really at the end of the day, the biggest thing. And I think it's probably a conjunction of his plan for Geno that marries up with his plan for DK that makes this a nice move. And, Phil had brought up Geno earlier, and he could have been an easy one to put on this list. I think just by the fact that Geno is going to be asked to do less is more for him right now, I think, compared to last year. And I think that's going to help him in terms of getting to the ball to DK on a regular basis down the stretch. And it's going to make it so that it opens things up for DK even later in the year where it wasn't open for him this year, because they're going to have to respect the run game. You're not going to be able to double him as easily, and it all marries together. And I think that I like the idea of DK having a bounce back season. Well, and it's not even a bounce back, but maybe a more impactful season. That would be cool.
Well, how about you, Phil? Do you think the more impactful season can come? And is it because Kubiak is doing something to stir it the right way?
Okay, I have so many things I want to say funneling in around this because I like a little bit of what Brandon said, a little bit of what Adam said, and I think in the middle, my favorite thing first of the entire press conference of the very boring Klint Kubiak, my very favorite thing was, okay, we craft a plan, then we discover what our guys are good at, and we use them for what they are good at. And we all look and see what DK can be. We know a lot of things that DK is not, but he's one of the best in the NFL at some things. He's not top 10 receiver at other things. Don't try to make him what he's not. Don't try to use DK like JSN, and don't try to use JSN like DK. We can already see that. But even still, you're going to have plays you're going to discover, ooh, this really unlocks some things when I use him. And so I don't agree with Adam that receivers shouldn't have a particular plan, because I think they are unique individuals, especially some of our receivers. They have unique skill sets, and a play caller needs to know how to use them. I think all the way back over a decade ago, there was a hot mic. Daryl Bevels talking, I need to get a golden play. I need to get golden involved. And there's a lot of things that does is if golden's just kind of disappeared, one, the defense might have started to forget about him. But worse, Golden might have started to forget about Golden, and his energy level for the whole play could lack. Also, now I get Golden involved, and what do I have? I have the safety paying a little more attention, opening things up for everybody. So I like a play caller that looks at all of his weapons as individuals, figures out what they excel at. I know it's just words, but I hope that's actually his desire is, I'm going to find what these guys are great at. I'm going to use them for that. And to me, as much as we threw the ball last year, as much as we threw it, it's amazing that DK only had as many targets as he did. He was on the field all the time, and I felt like he wasn't affecting the game like a dynamic player like DK should have been able to affect the game.
So before I take it, guys, go ahead, Adam. What do you want to say?
What I was trying to get at about the plan for DK is that I yes, you need a plan for DK Metcalf. You do.
Okay,
What I thought was weird about it was like that was the thing. That was one of the big things, is that he had a plan for DK Metcalf and it was better than the other plan. It's like, I want the plan to be like, how do we make this offensive line better? That needs to be the plan that jumps off of the page. And how do you get the quarterback to play at his top level? Like, that's the plan that I want them to be like, that's what we hired him for. Not like, well, he's got a plan for DK Metcalf. Great. The end user. Like, I want the factory at the very beginning, the offensive line. What's his plan for that? That's what I'd have been more interested in.
That's a great point, Adam. Yeah, it all starts at the O-line. I agree, but there's 11 guys on the field, and I want my offensive coordinator to care about all 11 guys. Yeah. Percentage-wise, yes. Make the offensive line succeed before anything else, because if they don't, throw all your papers in the toilet, because if your offensive line can't succeed, it's all garbage anyway. But he does need to see them as individuals.
I want to hear a 5-word or less plan for DK Metcalf from Brandon. Brandon, 5 words or less.
5 words or less. Trade for Patrick Mahomes.
All right. Maybe. All right. So the one piece of the DK thing that I would add to is that Kubiak has had success, and I think it might be a numbers game. And I guess I'll finish my sentence first. He has had success getting things to wide receiver ones, in general. There was some injuries last year, of course, and that's the way it goes in the NFL. With that, I think it's possibly partly because more often they're going to just have two wide receivers out there, like just a numbers game. They won't be in 11 personnel as much, I don't think, as they were this year, probably by quite a bit less. And DK will still be one of the two dudes getting a vast majority of wide receiver snaps, JSM being the other guy. Just kind of that number game alone, I think could benefit a player like DK. So his targets go up maybe 10 or 15% potentially. And, he's back over 1,000 yards and maybe tacks on 2 or 3 more touchdowns, which Adam, I think that would nudge it the way you were kind of getting at, being like, not bounce back, but kind of what we more expect that DK could do every single year with proper volume, it sounds like. So, all right.
Another 5-word or less plan.
Yes.
Stop throwing fades to DK.
And fades in general are kind of.
I mean, if you're not Jamar Chase, it's usually not a great play. I mean, there's just not many guys that are awesome at the fade to do it all the time.
No.
Yeah. And with Joe Burrow throwing the ball too, right? Definitely 2 to tango. Okay. So we've been through all those now. Mine was, I put up UConn on the screen, flash that again for my alma mater, who, by the way, we took down Villanova today, UConn men's basketball, that is. It's almost March, so we're going to get heated back up. That's what we do. And of course, I was representing Christian Haynes. And why am I excited about this? Well, look, a couple of reasons, guys. The first one is simply he certainly set a real nice floor, right? Like that's a bad year, right? So that's a bad year.
It can only go up.
Exactly. It's kind of like, you join a bowling league and you have to set your average the first week, right? So you throw a few extra gutters, you miss a spare or two. They call that sandbagging, right? And it's actually illegal in a bowling league. So maybe Christian Haynes. Precisely, exactly. So, I don't think he sandbagged on purpose. You wouldn't do that a rookie year. But to me, it was maybe there's just some stuff there that he just didn't. He got into the doghouse potentially of grub, because when he was on the field, I didn't think it was all that bad. And I would say what you were saying earlier, the whole team here about Cross and why Cross might be successful, similar reasons. The thing that Haynes was good at in college was getting into space, blocking in zone schemes, like getting to places before the other guy got there, and then being able to be very effective on the move. Those are kind of the pillars of being a good zone run blocker. And the last thing I'll say about Haynes before I open it up is when Kubiak was hired, he took to Twitter and gave a nice little celebratory thing. I think it was either the eye emoji or something like that, just indicating that he was excited about this hire, probably because the scheme fits him more. With that kind of floor, and I think we might need him, hopefully he could have a really nice bounce back year. And I'm looking at that delta. So Mr. Phil, I'll toss it back to you first. Are you a believer in my UConn Husky?
Well, I just feel like being a jerk and saying the reason that this is great for Christian Haynes is he's going to get an awesome chance to learn behind a stud offensive guard that we sign in the offseason. But that would make my day. But as far as with Klint Kubiak, I really don't know. I mean, if I'm on the offensive line and then my new OC gets hired, I'm going to give all of the emojis as to how stoked I am for my new coach, my new teacher. What else are you going to do? I mean,
use your words.
Oh, I'm bummed. My new boss is going to be terrible. This is going to be awful. We're going to be atrocious now. I can't imagine doing that. So I feel like Clinton's got a lot of hope there. I did look at Christian Haynes as one of the people that I would love it. I would love it if this unlocks him, but I'll actually be bummed if that's what I'm counting on going into the season, because I really, really, really hope we upgrade at offensive guard in the offseason, guys.
Well, I'll pass to Brandon. I also will say, as I baton pass it, I think we need 2 guards. right? I think that's very possible.
Okay, well, I'll take two.
Right. But
Yeah.
we may need one of the dudes that is currently on the team to step up.
I thought you meant two new ones, which I'll buy too.
Perhaps we go that way. But Brandon, what do you think about the guard situation and specifically Haynes' ability to have a big second year or a better second year?
I will start by critiquing his emoji usage. You obviously should have gone eggplant over eye emojis, but that's fine. And then I kind of been in the same ballpark of who you go with in guards, because he might be competing for the backup spot if you're going out and you're signing somebody, a free agent guard, whether it's on the right side, whether it's on the left side. I think that you probably want to sign a guard in free agency, and you probably want to draft a guard. And I think that that could it may end up making it tough for him to be on the starting line week one. And if that's the case, we're not going to get much out of him in terms of improvement, because he's going to be in a similar spot that he was for a lot of the season. But I think you're right in that the potential is there with this scheme, with this offseason, being able to hopefully get himself physically prepared for year number 2 to where he can be a lot more competitive for that guard spot.
A lot of smart things there, Adam. What do you got?
I thought about Christian Haynes, and I do think that there's some small things in the scheme that might help him a little bit. But the only reason I didn't go with him was I don't think what he needs to do to become more successful in the league has anything to do with scheme at all. He wasn't strong enough. He wasn't strong enough throughout the season. That's the reason he couldn't stay on the field. And of all the things in the world that you can address in an offseason, that is the easiest to accomplish, meaning there's no like trickery to it, like anything like that. All you got to do is go to the gym, turn on NFL Network like Clinton, and sweat one out in the gym. And I think he's going to be better just by the fact that he's got a full NFL offseason to train like a professional and become stronger. And that's going to help him. Now, whether or not they bring in other guards and he's going to be competing for a backup spot or a starting spot, we shall see. But Clinton is a professor of history here. He knows that history often repeats itself. And I think that's why he chose this, because he knows that there isn't any way on God's green earth that John Schneider goes out and gets 2 guards and maybe even a center this offseason, like good ones, and let alone spend money on them. Like, so he's betting on that. It's probably a safe bet, based on John Schneider's history. But I don't think Kubiak's offense necessarily is the difference maker for Haynes. I think it's just getting in the weight room and lifting some weights.
I don't know what Adam said, but I don't want to hear it. If he said something about Schneider's not going to get us a guard, which I was waiting for someone to say, I just imagined that didn't happen, because I feel like it's time for a new leaf for John Schneider. It's time for him to go for it. It's time for him to give us something better. In fact, if I was Kubiak in my interview, the question I'd be looking for if I'm Mike sitting across Kubiak is, do you like our guards? And I hope Kubiak says, no, you guys need to improve there. Okay, you can see what I see. You're hired. No, not quite like that, but
I'm sure they talked about it though. And I would, the one piece I would add is that, I know we can't rely on talk, but Schneider's recent interview on whatever, 710 out there in Seattle sports, he came out and just directly said, we know what the deficiencies are, and then talked about the guards, and then compounding that with what Kubiak is saying about how he really kind of requires a stud center. They've got to make some moves, and it'll be.
Did he make excuses for himself?
Thank you, Phil. Yes.
Okay, because he said, yeah, we all know where the improvement needs to be, but there's 2 sides to the coin. It's almost like he was saying, it's not like I haven't been given these guys good players, but unfortunately, my good friend Pete Carroll has never had a coach who's been able to develop any of these awesome interior linemen I've been telling Jody this for 13 years. I've been just giving him all this talent, and what have they done with it? Was he implying that, Adam? Did you get a little vibe from that when he talked about development being a big part of the issue?
I'm surprised when I threw that up on my Chromecast on the TV and started watching it that I still have a functioning TV. Because when I started hearing that, it was like, yeah, you know, you got to get them, but you know, then you really just got to develop them, and just like both axles poof, poof, right over Pete Carroll and Tom Cable and everybody that's ever Andy Dickerson, everybody that's come before him. Like just no accountability. I was so pissed. I don't know if it hit you the same way, Brandon, but golly, that frustrated me.
You know, I think one thing that I'd like to get into this offseason, because if you just take a look back at this past year, I've been trying to compartmentalize it, how bad, you know, good versus bad process and good versus bad outcome. Because I would argue that for a lot of the offensive linemen in the past offseason, you know, leading up to the 2024 season, there was a lot of good process that happened with addressing the offensive line. But overwhelmingly, it was bad outcomes when you talk about the retirement of Connor Williams, when you talk about the injury to George Fant. Like
Affetti.
Well, Affetti was long gone, but yeah.
I thought you meant all the previous. I misunderstood.
Just in last season.
Just recently. Okay,
yeah.
I got you.
But Affetti was definitely a bad outcome. Maybe good process, just because they actually drafted an offensive lineman in the first round. But yeah, and so that's where my mind is trying to go with it, right? With that similar type of discussion. Was drafting Affetti, was that a good process or was it a bad process? Was it, you know, or was a good process, bad outcome? So trying to think my way through that and trying to give John maybe a little bit of benefit of the doubt when it came to a lot of the circumstances and how they ended up playing out last year.
Does the NFL grade people's job security by the outcome of their process or the outcomes of their outcomes? Like, which is it, Brandon? I'm just curious. Like, because I don't care that like the process was good or anything like that. The outcome sucked completely, and that's what dudes get hired and fired about. Like the league don't care about your process. What they care about is the results, the outcome.
I think as an owner and a boss, you would care a little bit about process because you could see that if something was good process and you just had a lot of just negative outcomes in terms of injuries, like there's generally not a lot you can do about that. Now, it's definitely going to play into it into his job performance going forward. His commentary on how guards are overdrafted and underpaid, I think that's going to haunt him. That was probably one of the worst things that he could have said last offseason and something that I think has stuck with all of us as fans. And so he's going to have a little bit of making up for that, I think, this offseason too.
Well, I think that's a very good debate we just had there on that particular topic. So I'm happy that I chose a player that was able to stir up that much, you know, that different sides and different areas there. And we, of course, do know that it's, as John Schneider does know, because I think he said it aloud, that is where the deficiencies are, whether he's throwing coaches under the bus or not. The recognition is there. Now, will the Tiger change his stripes and do something about that in, say, free agency and then the first or second round and beyond of the upcoming draft? That's the part we're going to have to stay tuned and figure out about. So, all right. So that was actually our first round. By my calculations, guys, I don't think anybody but me has a second round choice. Is that right? Everybody else's was already taken off the board?
Yeah.
Okay. So on the count of 12, I'm going to show everybody mine. So 12, and I'm going with Coby Bryant. And you might say, what
that doesn't make any sense.
Right. You might say
Klint,
that.
When you were at the gym and had NFL Network on, did anything fall onto your head? Like while you were there, like, are you okay?
Just a few 45s while I was watching Travis Hunter highlights. No, it's not. It's nothing.
Can Coby Bryant play fullback?
Yeah, there's a Coby Bryant. There's a Coby Bryant in a league called the National Basketball Association. God rest his soul. Yeah. He's no longer with us. In that sport, Clinton, the guy plays offense and defense throughout the game. In the sport that we talk about on the Seahawks podcast, there's a guy named Coby Bryant also. Yes. And in this sport, when they play defense, they come off the field and the offense comes on. And then that's when the offensive coordinator, for instance, ours named Klint Kubiak, he directs the other players not named Kobe Bryant.
Yes, I am aware, and I appreciate all of that dripping with all the sarcasms. Thank you, Mr. Phil. Let me give you my reasons, right? The biggest things I wrote them down here, and I figured this might be, I want to throw something in there. I'm happy that it's standing on an island like Charles Cross was all year. Basically, look, guys, I'm looking at this Kubiak offense thinking we will sustain more drives, we will have longer drives, we'll have a better TOP, time possession, and I think we're going to be at least a smidgen more aggressive on fourth down. Brandon, Adam, you guys had a great discussion about that on the flagship. Is it really about being aggressive on fourth down or being successful downs 1 through 3 that makes it very obvious you should go for it more often on fourth down because they're more gettable? I think we'll be in the situations you guys were talking about on the latest flagship. So all of that, and then if you pair that with Mike just being great with safeties, getting the very most out of safeties, and going to some of the stats, 3 interceptions last year, 5 pressures. Kobe Bryant was phenomenal when he was the sim rusher or the actual blitzer. And in late in games, fourth down situations in the deep red zone, the black red zone there, he was the dude getting dialed up, often not Witherspoon, and either getting home or having a lot of success. All the things we talked about on offense, I think, allude to or procure more opportunities for Mike to be aggressive on defense and move this chip because he's really good with safety play. So Kobe Bryant, guys, Kobe Bryant is a dark horse to be impacted by Klint Kubiak. What do you say?
I just want to know, like, as being a Geno Smith fan and Geno Smith truther, how you snubbed Geno for being your number 2 guy and went straight to defense to pick Kobe Bryant instead.
I'll answer it.
Christian Haynes and Kobe Bryant.
Well, I'll answer it quickly in the fact that I am a Geno Smith truther. I looked at what Geno Smith did in a offense that was not very kind to quarterbacks. And now I think it was a little bit almost like 3 and 3 out for me, Brandon. It's like a little too obvious. So you guys could react to Kobe. You could talk about Geno, whatever you like. Adam, what do you got, dude?
I think you spelled Kobe Bryant wrong. I think you could have just written on there all the defense because they won't be on the field forever. I think that was the name you were searching for.
Yeah, that's the point.
Yeah. So what a rando defensive player to pick. Like,
he's
not
Boye
Mafe, not Derek Hall. Like, edge rushers are going to have more rushing opportunities because the Seahawks are playing with the lead, and guys are going to have to throw more late in games. Not those guys.
Not Byron
Kobe
Murphy because
Bryant.
he could get snaps at fullback.
Yeah. No, Kobe Bryant, the dude who plays the furthest from the ball in defense. Like, that's the
Clinton.
guy. Yeah.
Clinton, you wrote the rules to this game. You came up with this whole thing. Was there like extra points if you pick guys that nobody else picked? Because that's the only thing that makes any sense to me after what I read was we went with Christian Haynes, who 95% of us Hawk fans hope doesn't play this year. And then you picked Kobe Bryant snubbing 16, 17 possible offensive players. And I guess you win. Clinton, you win. You picked 2 guys. We didn't pick them. You gave us new things to talk about. And I love Kobe Bryant. I'm excited about him. Klint Kubiak is going to absolutely unlock because his offense is going to be so good in practice that Kobe's going to have to learn to read a real NFL offense, and he's just going to go to a whole nother level.
Oh, I got one, though. I got one because I came up with a third inspired by Clinton. So I think this is the guy who is going to have the most impact by the Kubiak offense. He's the freaking water boy.
It's the water boy.
Oh,
Yeah.
so
Mike Macdonald's new son.
Quality H2O there.
that's
yeah.
it. Bobby Boucher at linebacker. That's wonderful. Brandon, I think we had a lot of fun. What do we want the Flockers out there to make sure they're doing? Because heck, I think we have more fun than most and have really cool conversations you're not going to hear anywhere else.
Yes, you want to go to getintheflock.com. We are closing in on our 400th member there at getintheflock.com. So it could be you. You can go, you could sign up as a free member. You could sign up at $3 or above, and it gets you into our Discord group. It's value for value. You pick the number that works for you. If that happens to be free, then that's fine too. But getintheflock.com, that's where you go.
Right. All right. So, and of course, youtube.com/Seahawkers podcast to subscribe there, like the videos, all that stuff. It helps a ton, more than you know. Boys, we are now basically heading into list season and then underwear Olympic season with the combines. And very soon, in fact, it's going to be getting a little bit warmer and we're going to be heading into draft season. I'm fired up. I felt this was a nice kickoff to get the juices flowing. And as we head out of here, I think there's only one thing left to say.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.